You know, we could always just record us saying na 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 na.
And with that being said, welcome to Comic Core Presents Outside the Issues. And we've got to dive into it because we've got a hell of a panel. We've got a scary panel. A lot of beards in this panel. A lot of beards. Starting off with that one with the hairiest. Cat Red, what's going on?
Hey, Chad. It is Thrones Night here on the Comic Core. Like you said, we have a killer panel, and it was a pretty eventful episode. So, not to spoil anything else, let's get right on into who we have here for this episode. First off, Bear Island. I've been fighting this guy on Instagram to get him on here. So here you go, Bear.
What's up, everybody? I really didn't think this was going to happen tonight, because shouldn't we all be going door to door right now trying to get people to sign that petition?
Yeah,
to redo season 8
today.
I second that notion.
The petition to restart the finale. That is something else. Next up, we've got the man that is on everything and who is blowing up. And if you haven't seen his t-shirt, let's just say it was all a dream when he used to read Wizard magazine. And that's John's Comics with Kids.
Hello, King Joffrey is in the house. Hello. Welcome.
Not again.
You missed the old days when you had Joffrey to hate instead of the writers of this show, huh?
Absolutely.
Those were the good old days. Joffrey was a fun guy to hate.
Coming back from the dead like a White Walker, Drew Manchu.
All right. Thank you, Chad of House lives in a meat locker. Look, you can hate the writers all you want. Just know that if you go back and you watch last week's episode of this show, you'll know that besides Varys surviving, I was right about everything. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears tuned to me, because that's where you're going to hear the truth.
Well, and the two from the north have returned. He got done drinking a giant's tit milk. Connor, what's happening?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me back. I'll try to stay a little bit more coherent this time.
And then we've got Melisandre herself in Miss Abby. What's going on, Ab?
Not much. I heard that they wanted to have a big death, so they killed the show.
That's like a dad joke.
It's a really bad dad joke.
All right, Kat. Let's dive right into it. Give me your thoughts.
All right. So, overall, there's been a lot of people that truly hate this episode, and a lot of people who are actually coming in defense of this episode. I may actually be in the minority, and this might shock a few people. Besides a few issues here and there, I was okay with this episode. I'm a Daenerys fan. I've been a Daenerys fan since the first episode of the first. Daenerys holding it down.
Okay.
Yep. I just let Chad down.
No, you didn't let me down, but I talked to John earlier in the week about this, and I'm gonna spitball it. I'm teeing it up for you there, John. What's up with the artsy fartsy stuff?
I love the way you put it.
That was a letdown for this episode.
I will say that this episode is kind of the prime example of why I'm sort of disappointed with the season in general. I think that everything, considering how much time they had to make these choices, to get it done, everything feels rushed and kind of slapped together and not really well thought through and set up. I don't have a problem with Dany laying waste to King's Landing. They just didn't set it up very well. I think they didn't build to this very well when they had clear moments when they could have done it. Imagine what would have happened if Bronn rolled up at Winterfell, kills Tyrion, kills Jaime, and then she finds out Bronn did it on Cersei's command. She rolls down there and then she loses one of her dragons. She's just going to I believe she would legitimately lay waste. Instead of what we get is it seems like a little bit of a like last second decision by the writers, which again, I think this whole season has felt a little bit like that. Quick things happening without a lot of really good quality setup.
I'm gonna agree with you 100% on this, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the books do a really good job of showing how Dany is transitioning into the Mad Queen, where a lot of times she's very impetuous and impulsive in some of her actions, but the show hasn't done a good job of showing that. So now they're cramming it all in together just to make it happen. And I think we're going to lose a lot in that transition. Let's face it, these writers are gone. They're already working on Star Wars, the next trilogy. And they're already filming the prequel with a whole new creative team. They're already started shooting in Ireland earlier this month. So, gone too soon is all I'm going to say. Drew?
You hapless bastards couldn't be more wrong, and I'll tell you why. This has been foreshadowed since the end of season 1.
Exactly.
All right. They have been telling you this all along. It is spelled out for you. Camera is stuck on the king. Oh, well, you know what? There is no king. It's all burned to ashes. And why? Because they told you it was going to happen that way all along. She's been a villain from day one. She talks too much about her destiny. She's always been crazy. She's done everything she can. She crucified people. People. Why did she crucify these people? Because of the caste system they were born into. They weren't tyrants. They weren't terrible people. They were slave owners. Okay, if that's the way of the law of the land, how are you not going to? You're born into that the same way the slaves were born into slavery. She crucified people. She's evil. She's evil. She has been evil since the moment her crazy ass tried to kill herself on Drogo's pyre and born when she could burn. She didn't know that. She kill herself. She's a nutball. She has been. She's throwing out. She's throwing temper tantrums at her friend nephew, who should be the real king. We all know this. And she's throwing down ultimatums left and right. She says at the beginning of this episode, let it be fear. Guess what? It was fear. Everybody ran in terror. She's not a good guy. She's never been a good guy. She wasn't going to be a good guy. I think the problems that a lot of people have with the writers this season come down to pacing. And you're getting 6 movies this season. You're getting 6 movies. You're not getting 10 55-minute episodes of a TV show. You're getting 6 individual movies that tell individual stories that come together as a tapestry. I think that pacing requires it to be more cinematic, and I think that the end of this show requires them to keep ramping up the surprises, keep ramping up the energy, and keep moving forward to a crescendo. And this is what we're going to get at the end of it all. It's not the same as it is every other season where you have this plotting story that comes and then bam, red wedding, and then everybody shits their pants, and then episode 10 slows down again. And it did that every season. Episode 10 would slow you back down and take you back into the off season.
Some of these episodes are right around an hour, though. So they haven't all been. This bummed me out at the beginning of the season when it was presented like everyone's going to be a movie, and they freaking weren't. Several of them are almost the same length as other seasons.
The first 3 episodes were regular time.
I would argue they blew it on that because they aren't doing mini movies. They're trying to cram them and stunts and sets into that, but they're not cramming that amount of story into that. And that's the pacing thing that I think is
there's only this much story left, and they're stretching the story.
Hey, there's as much as they
big
want
moments.
because there's no book. So at this point, there's as much as they want to have. And I would love Dany's arc to be the Mad Queen. I just don't know that they're packing enough of it in.
All right, Abby, you were saying?
Foreshadowing is not the same thing as character development. When you look at things like the Red Wedding, you realize they had things with like diplomatic decisions. He marries the one girl, and so when the Red Wedding came around, there's a reason the Red Wedding came around. Versus they're trying to make Dany seem like she's crazy because they think that's how it's supposed to be. Well, also
no,
it's
she
the
has
fact
been crazy. It's not how it's supposed to be. They have developed the character. They developed it over the course of 6 seasons now. Every time you look in her eyes, she's being told by somebody else, "Don't be crazy," when her first instinct is to be crazy every single time.
But also in
My
the same thing aspect, it would be like then Arya, because she spent time with the faceless men and like skinned a chick's face off, that then she should also go crazy. And how Jamie pushed a kid out the window, and also he should go crazy
But let me
because they're all this sort of setup. It's foreshadowing. It's not character development.
He pushed the kid out the window because he's a scumbag, and at the end of the series, he goes to save his sister because he's a scumbag. Pretty sure I said that last week. Tick one for Drew Manchu.
Also,
I
Arya
still
wasn't
don't know
raised
if I
by her
could.
crazy older brother. Arya had a decent upbringing and didn't have the hardships that Daenerys had to go through. I don't think you can use that example as apples to apples. I just don't think that one works. Daenerys has been through some incredible, awful stuff and was not entirely, let's just say she didn't have a healthy childhood for sure. Blame Viserys if you want, I do. But I just think it's different. I think Daenerys is alone in the world. And I don't think she was always destined to do this, but the things leading up to this episode, she lost Jorah, Missandei, everyone close to her. She doesn't trust Tyrion anymore, so it's like he's not even there. Jon abandoned her. She's got nothing left, and the most dangerous thing is a person who's alone and isolated. I think that's just different.
So I hated this episode when I first watched it, and then I talked to a bunch of people, and they kind of talked to me about the whole foreshadowing thing and her being crazy the whole time, and how her entire kind of political life, she's had people telling her not to be crazy, not to be crazy. But my biggest thing is they didn't do the greatest job like portraying that she was crazy, because her whole instinct when she was talking to Barristan and her whole instinct when she was asking questions with Tyrion originally was, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be like this. And so I guess I just don't think, kind of going back to what Kat was saying, or not, John, I think, I can't remember, but somebody said that they didn't think they do the greatest job of setting up. And I think there were definitely clues there that she was going crazy, because after I thought about it, I watched it again, you could see them. And you can kind of understand what people are saying. Like Tyrion kept her from going, doing the crazy thing, which was attacking King's Landing, and other people kept her from doing the crazy thing. But they didn't do the greatest job of being like, hey, she's actually have these powerful urges, rather than like, hey, maybe it's just a thought. I don't know. That was my overall feeling of
it. And Chad goes silent. This is the way it should be. Just mute him.
just happened.
So, just
Who's
adding
in
on to
I'm sorry, but go ahead, Kat. My thoughts weren't good on this one.
adding on to what Bear said, which I do agree with all of that. I wholeheartedly feel like if she had flipped a switch earlier on and gone straight to King's Landing, I feel like she would be much more of the Mad Queen if she had literally just burned King's Landing. But I feel like the fact that we're seeing so many people just going for a complete free-for-all. There's no like, oh, well, we're these honor-driven men, which I think some of the worst carnage that we're seeing in this episode is actually from Jon's men, which, we didn't actually get into this yet, but the carnage of King's Landing after the bells are rung, and we're seeing the fighting continue, and Jon looks to Grey Worm to try to help him stop it, and Grey Worm's like, no, we're killing. And then the Northmen are killing, and Jon can't control his men. And Jon actually even has to stop one of his men from raping a woman in front of him. And he just looks around in shock, like, I can't do anything.
I thought Grey Worm was going to go after Jon when he wasn't fighting enough. Like, luckily, a Lannister happened by that he could dispatch, or else I thought Grey Worm was going to go after him. Like, you better do this, buddy.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
When Grey Worm gave him that look, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be the big showdown in the final episode. And I'm not trying to jump ahead, but there has been some spoilers that John is going to be reunited with Cat's fan favorite, Ghost. And what's going to happen? I mean, why did she go mad? Why did she burn it down? I mean, she's just a wackadoo. And trust me, I know wackadoos.
Can we talk about the title of the episode for a second?
Yes.
I don't know that this is canon, but when I imagine Daenerys being whisked away from King's Landing as a baby, I imagine the last thing she heard were those bells that were tolling for her dead father. And it's probably, that may have been what set something off. It happens to be the title of the episode. I don't know for sure. I'm sure Abby does know because she knows more than I do.
I actually was going to agree with you because of two reasons. Was that one of the in the books they talk
There it is
about
again.
how they talk about how one of the battles that shifted the change during Robert's Rebellion was, I can't remember what the town it was, but they won. Robert was chilling out in this town because he got injured. He fathered another bastard, and they rang the bells to show victory. So, but also, if you remember in the show, I'm going back to the show, when Joffrey died, the bells were ringing through the city. So I actually was agreeing with Bear in this one because then it would be showing the bells ringing when the Mad King died. That might have possibly, like he said, something that she would have heard. Because they also ring the bells when it's the death of a monarch.
Wasn't she taken from Dragonstone though? Was she actually ever in the Red King, the Red City?
I thought she was born
No.
at Dragonstone because they were
Yes,
talking about the destruction.
Yeah.
She fled to Essos from Dragonstone, but I don't know if there was a from Red Keep to Dragonstone to, you know.
I thought she
wasn't-
was
Sorry.
Actually,
in a storm
I thought-
on Dragonstone.
Yeah, I thought her mother was pregnant with Viserys. Was with Viserys. Sorry, was pregnant with her, but with a young Viserys when she fled.
it still would be an anger thing, I guess. I mostly read a thing saying that everybody was saying that she was ringing the bells because now she was mad because this was now her ancestral home and it wasn't really hers. So she's just like, screw this, and then just started burning it.
If John was
It's
smart, he
with,
would have
like,
just
all
got
the
her a bag of
destruction.
Lay's potato chips and some like M&Ms.
No, he just needed to get her Snickers. That's all it was.
Yeah, she was a little. I
She's a
mean,
little crazy when she's hungry.
Hangry.
I mean, but the entire episode was just her blowing the city away. I mean,
With fire and with blood, she took it back.
yeah, and let's talk about this. There was some good parts, and then we get to the. I mean, here it is. Arya's in there. She's there with the Hound, and
Yeah.
let's get real artistic and just make. I want the background to be the dragon flying by, and then we're just gonna fight on these stairs, and I'm like, come on, dude, give me a break at this point. And does the Hound actually just let Cersei walk by him? Like, you know what? Go ahead. You're gonna die.
I think Drew's
anyway.
got a question.
Yeah, Drew.
He's focused.
I think
You're
out of
muted,
every
Drew.
death in I was gonna say out of every death in Game of Thrones, I thought Qyburns was the funniest.
Oh, by far the best death game.
This was the greatest thing in the history of television.
Hard agree.
Lane Bolt was great. It was phenomenal. There was he sends the soldiers down at him, and Sandor's like, slip, slap, slap, you're all dead, right? Qyburn's like, protect your queen. He's like, smack, boom, you're dead. And then she's like gonna walk by.
Cersei skips by. Excuse me, guys.
Cersei's just like, I'm going to see myself out.
He doesn't give a shit about Cersei. Let her go. She's gonna die anyway. He was right. I'm gonna kill my brother. Guess what? He did, and it was amazing. It was back and forth, back and forth. Couldn't fucking kill him. Stabbed him in the eye. Only way you could kill him is to tackle him through the wall, dive into the dragon's fire, sacrifice himself at the same time. It was amazing. It was great. I don't have any complaints about it at all. I think that it being on the stairs and him being so much bigger and so much more imposing, I think those shots were really well done. I think that the CG in the background was not distracting. I thought it was well placed. I think that the whole damn thing with Sandor and the mountain was just great.
It was
I love
cinematic. I think I could give it the cinematic quality and be fine with it. It didn't bother me. That part didn't bother me. I was glad that it played out the way we had hoped, in the sense that like they could actually have their showdown, and that it wasn't something we got teased and then didn't pay off.
I guess my biggest problem was they killed Aaron Rodgers 3 times in this episode.
Can't kill him enough.
Oh.
I mean, literally, he got killed 3 times. But
Tom Brady didn't do it in
Clegane
order.
was satisfying.
okay, so
My biggest issue with Clegane Bowl was that there was the whole episode, really, there was no suspense. It just like, I kind of like you watch it, and after the first time the bells issue, the rest of the time you kind of had like, oh, well, this is what's just going to happen. And it just like, I never was on the edge of my seat.
The whole
I was on
episode
the edge of my seat the whole entire time.
The whole thing was suspense.
It's so
There's an
funny how
explosion every other minute.
Everyone has such different reactions to it. I was riveted. Oh
I mean,
my
the
God.
only suspense I felt was the whole Arya surviving all of the buildings. I mean, but like, that was just a kind of like an unknown quantity. Like, yeah, Clegane Bowl was kind of like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. That was just me.
The plot
They did the
armor is
dust-
strong with that one.
The poof of dust in front of Arya like 4 different times. Like, oh, I wonder if she survived. Yeah, she survived.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of weirded me out about Arya. I'm sorry, Kat. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to touch into that. So, Clegane Bowl, gorgeous. I did like the fight sequencing throughout. My biggest disappointment was they go all the way there. It's Arya and Sandor side by side, and then they get right there, and he's like, "Don't do this. You're gonna die. The queen's gonna die." You're telling me he couldn't have had this talk to her at any time leading up to this?
I agree with that so much.
I felt like
He
that
also
was just
didn't-
the laziest point, just to get her on the street again, so we could have this whole, oh look, she's running through the town.
I honestly think the main reason they did it was a logistical reason. They need her in King's Landing to either die or to do something significant next week. And if he talks her out of it before they leave Winterfell, then she never makes the trip, and she's not there to do what she needs to do. So he needs to wait until the last minute, so she's in the city and witnesses Dany's
I
nut
just
job.
wish there was a
Arya
reason.
teleported.
It's
I was
just,
actually
But
sorry.
there was a really good reason. It's the fact that they looked up and the Red Keep no longer had structural integrity.
Yeah, there was
That's
some
why-
dragon damage.
He looked up and he's like, this place is going to fall down. It's either going to fall down on her or the dragon's going to get her. You should get out of here because you don't want it to fall down on you. And
I don't
that,
think they would have walked
Yeah,
into the building if
that
they knew
was-
that initially.
yeah, exactly. And he was going to go for the mountain either way. He knew he was sacrificing himself, and he didn't want her to do the same. She was grateful, and Sandor, thank you, was probably the best part of the episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, they weren't when they walked into the city, they didn't know she was going to go crazy. And I actually agreed with what Drew was saying with like he knew he was going to do this, and to get all philosophical, it kind of reminded me of like Frankenstein's monster kind of in a way, that like his brother created this horrible thing that was whole goal in life was to kill him, and then when he finally got to that point, he's like, I'm going too. So like his whole thing in life was to kill his brother. And he was essentially his creator because he was the one who burned his face and screwed him up.
I think he also knew that she was going to try to help him if she came along, and that might not end well. Aside from all this falling stuff, the mountain he didn't want to see his brother kill Arya.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I was going to say that something that I noticed that a lot of people in the fandom don't actually pick up on, because they're like, Arya is this little assassin killer thing, and Sansa's being a lot like Cersei. They spent multiple seasons with these people. Like, large chunks of their childhood were centered around the Hound and centered around Cersei. They basically kind of raised them a little bit. So that was something I noticed that a lot of the fandom hasn't picked up on. So they're.
It's kind of like how Daenerys went crazy every freaking episode, but the fandom never picked up on that either.
Well, let's rewind to the beginning of the episode and let's talk about Varys. And
So
what is he doing? And is his little what did he call them? Little birds, right? His little birds are out there still. And for a while, I mean, I don't know how hard it is to write calligraphy, But I mean, I think he wrote a couple notes that got out, and not the one that he burned up.
Definitely.
Did
Yeah.
anybody, could anybody really? Because when I was watching it with my friends, I didn't see this, and I'm looking down at my phone right now to try and get the quote. But did anybody hear what he was saying to the little bird who works in the kitchens and said that she was being watched? She said, "Okay, it's okay. We'll try again tomorrow."
They were trying to poison her
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that until like
because
yesterday. And
poison is a eunuch's weapon. Aside from women, eunuchs also. According
exactly,
to our old friend, was it Pycelle? Yeah.
Bunch of dickless poison bunnies, I tell you.
says, she won't eat. We'll try it again at supper. I think they're watching me. Who? Her soldiers? Of course they are. That's their job. What have I told you, Martha? The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Go on. They'll be missing you in the kitchen. So
Now-
I didn't pick up on that because I didn't hear it. But that's
But-
pretty
I
crazy.
think that's
but
why
he
he took off the
poisoned her.
traits.
He poisoned Danny in a different way because he got the true origin of John out. I think there's a lot of people now that know who John is, and I think that's how he may have poisoned her. Not like Joffrey or slipping a Mickey or anything like that. I think essentially he poisoned her by sending it out as who questioned it. Take it all the way back. I mean, the quote that Cersei gave Sansa in the early seasons was, "You play the game, or you." And I think honestly, the person who's played the game the best the last two seasons, it's got to be Sansa.